Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us. How are you? What have you done since we last talked? Anything fun? Had a chance to get outdoors much? Boy, we knew it was coming, but Mother Nature did change on us, didn't she? And actually, it was kind of welcome. It was just unseasonably warm, and that cold front came through. We got some rain. The temperatures dropped. It was 38 degrees at my house earlier in the week. In fact, we had the first frost, not on the grass, but the first frost on the roof. So I was checking my records. You know me, I like my old sayings, right? And one of the old sayings I heard when I was a kid growing up, it would be X number of weeks from the time the cicadas buzzed in the summertime until the first frost. Well, and I'm searching my memory here, and I feel like, originally I heard, it'll be 8 weeks. Well, I kept track of this over the years. My dad and I kept track when he was around. And it wasn't really 8 weeks. Maybe at first I even heard 6 weeks. But I checked my records here this year. And from the time the first cicada buzzed until the first frost at my place was 9 weeks. Now, what does that mean? Nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It's just one of those things that I like to keep track of. I do put a lot of stock, though, into these old sayings. How did they get to be, passed down from generation to generation? I believe there is some grain of truth in these, or they wouldn't have continued on. Back when people were much more in tune with the land, much more in tune with Mother Nature, much more in tune with the natural world, because they had to be, right? They were farmers, a lot of them, for the most part. My family was farmers. And so they didn't have the, they weren't able to pull up the weather app on their phone. They weren't able to pull up the radar on their iPad. They had to be in touch with the natural world. I remember my granddad would walk out on the porch in the morning, and that's how he would know. Or before he went to bed that night, he would know what the weather was going to be like the next day. He could feel it. He could feel it on his face. He could feel the wind. He could feel it probably in his bones. That was his weather forecast. And so, people had to be more in touch with our natural world. I miss that in some ways today. I love the technology. I love the instant access to information and news and forecasts and all that stuff. And, the GPS on our boats. Remember when you used to have to, where were you fishing? Well, I lined up that point there on the shore. You know that point out there with that great big white pine? Yeah. Well, I was about, maybe a half mile off there, but I was right in line with, that house over there on the other side of the shore, that red house? Yeah, I would line up right there, and that's where I was fishing. And that's as close as we could get. Can you imagine if we had to go out fishing today and try to do it that way? These days you go out and you pull up your phone, you pull up the GPS. Far more accurate than Loran. Remember Loran C? I find it fascinating how our outdoor adventures have changed. Is it and is it too much? Is there too much technology? That's an interesting conversation. Again, I like technology. I like taking advantage of the technology. Does it make us lazy when it comes to our outdoor passions, our outdoor pursuits? Some people will argue that. I prefer to say maybe not lazy, but it maybe in some ways makes us better, makes us easier to be proficient. Maybe it makes it easier for us to be successful if we judge our success by a harvest, by taking a deer or catching a limit of fish. I don't think we should judge things that way. I think the success of an outdoor activity should be judged by the enjoyment of the activity. I like to say the experience is the experience. The experience of getting out on the water, the experience of going out in the woods, the experience of walking the fields, that should be what we savor. That should be what we look forward to. That should be what we remember, especially if we get a chance to share those experiences with our family or our friends or somebody who means something to us. We can share the experience. The harvest is just a bonus. I mean, how many times do you go out deer hunting and you don't shoot a deer? Far more than the number of times you actually put an animal down. And if you get a bunch of fish, that's just a bonus, right? One thing I did notice when that cold front came through is the deer activity, at least on the property that I'm hunting, the deer activity really picked up. Now, how do I know that? I know that from, have I been out there since? No, I haven't been out there since it got cold. By the time you hear this show, I will have been back in the woods. But as we are recording it this week, I haven't. But I'm keeping an eye on the deer out there by our cellular trail cameras, cell cams. Those things. When I think about things that have changed the way that I enjoy my outdoor activities, I can't think of anything offhand, at least, that has had more of an impact than trail cameras. Now, when they first came out, even before we had trail cameras, we had trail timers. Think about this. And there was a string that you would put across a runway, and that string was attached to a stick or a twig or a tree on one side of the runway, and on the other side, there was this little like mechanical device. And it did have batteries. We didn't have to wind them up. But when a deer went through that trail, that runway, it would pull the string, and it would give you an indication when you went back out and you checked the trail timer of when a deer went through there. But did you know, was it a deer? Was it a coyote? Was it a dog? Was it a buck? Was it a doe? You didn't know that. These days, we've got cell cameras everywhere out there. And I can pull up from my house or my office at the house on my phone or my laptop, and I can see what's moving and when. Was it a fawn that came into that food plot? Was it a doe? Was it a buck? Was it a big buck? Was it a small buck? And it's a time saver for sure. My dad used to say, if you spend enough time in the right spot, eventually you will get a shot at a buck. Now, back then, we weren't thinking big buck. We were thinking anything with antlers coming out of the top of the head. If you spend enough time out there in the right spot and you are patient enough, you will get a shot at a buck. Well, these days, we know what size the buck is when he's moving through there. In my case, for the most part, I'm doe hunting. I'm not interested in shooting a 1.5-year-old buck. If you are, God bless you, and I really mean that. If you want to shoot a 1.5-year-old buck, I am behind you 100%. You do what you want to do, as long as it's legal and you have a license in your pocket. Have at it. And I will support you and I will applaud you. Personally, at this point, I would rather shoot a big doe than a 1.5-year-old buck. But, honestly, venison is venison. If your time is limited and you don't want to wait for the monster buck that you see on TV because you know in your heart of hearts that there is no monster buck on the property that you're hunting, have at it. What else is going on? I've spent a lot of time thinking about that this week and how the outdoor experience has changed, how our outdoor experiences as we relate to the world around us have changed. And for me, what it comes down to is enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. Hunt your hunt. Enjoy the experience. Fish the way you want to fish. Fish for what you want to fish, how you want to fish. But the main thing is just to get out there. If you have a chance to share it with somebody else, all the better. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Nick Carpenter. He is the new owner of Brenton USA Firearms. Brenton is a Michigan-based company that's producing AR-style hunting rifles. Now, you can imagine in today's world, again, getting back to today's world, there are some challenges in doing that. Then Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews takes a look at their November edition. In hour number 2, processing your own venison with a guy who is a master at this. His name is Mike Horswill. He happens to work at Jay's Sporting Goods, but he has some great tips on how to process your own venison. Nick Green of MUCC checks in. This week's Ask Avery question. I'm thinking I want to talk a little bit about the Rampolla buck just because I've had a lot of questions about that. And in hour number 3, a man I call Sir Lancelot, Lance Valentine, talking about fall fishing for trophy walleye, primarily on Lake Erie and beyond. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. My email address is Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'm so glad you're with us this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM 1380 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now, as I always do. I am fascinated by this company. It's a family-owned, Michigan-based company based in Rapid River. In fact, their showroom is on US 2, just east of Rapid River. And I would encourage you, if you get a chance, to stop by and check it out. The showroom is very impressive. You can see their entire selection of knives. You can buy a knife right there. You can watch them make knives. You can get your knife engraved while you're there. Plus, these things have a lifetime guarantee. If you break it, they will fix it. I think that's pretty impressive. Again, the showroom on US 2, just east of Rapid River. If you can't make it to the showroom, go to the website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Rapid River Knives make excellent gifts, but don't wait too long because every year they get a pre-Christmas rush that kind of depletes the inventory. rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. You know, I love working with Michigan-based companies. So when I had the opportunity to work with a company called Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, I jumped on it. And especially when I heard more about the company. They make an AR-style hunting rifle. Now, AR-style rifles have gotten a lot of negative attention from people who don't know any better. But they're an excellent, all-purpose, multi-purpose hunting gun. Nick Carpenter is the new owner of Brenton, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Well, listen, a pleasure to have you here. Tell me a little bit about how you ended up in this situation. How did you end up at the helm these days?
So 3 years ago, I got my hands on the first Brenton. A friend of mine introduced me to. I've always been addicted to the AR platform, America's rifle, if you want to call it that. And I don't know. I've built a bunch in my lifetime, and this is the first one that when you put your hands on it, it feels different. And I knew it was different, and I knew I had to be a part of it. I just didn't know in what facet. Fast forward 3 years later, and here I am. I got the opportunity to purchase Brenton, and we couldn't say no. It's one of those things that I just really firmly believe that everybody should have one of these. And once you feel it, once you use it, you'll understand why. That was always what my sales pitch was. Not just another one.
I like this term, AR, America's Rifle. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by that, Nick?
Yeah, so actually that's what the term AR is. It's America's Rifle. So we just took what we believe is America's Rifle, and which is the AR platform, an AR-15, and we made it into a hunting rifle. When you hold the Brenton USA rifle, it's a whole lot different feel. Kind of feels like a bolt action gun. Has that handguard grip, that feel like your old, just like your old bolt guns. So AR actually stands for America's Rifle. So we didn't coin that term. We just use it. It's long form, I guess.
Well, and hey, listen, I'm not even going to use the term the naysayers say, but there's a negative connotation. Is that something you have to overcome in your marketing, or does the hunting crowd get it and accept it?
It's been a little difficult on both facets. I feel like, I guess, that the AR community, they really understand them. They get it. They want them. The hunting rifle, they've always looked for something that's that accurate, and that's kind of what we did. We've taken a precision stance on the AR platform, and we aim for accuracy. And then in the hunting industry, you find that most people are a little afraid of the ARs if they've never had one. Your standard guy who's always used his 870 or it's his old slug gun or his bolt action rifle, they've never really been around or seen the AR platform, and that can be a little intimidating. And I'm here to tell you that these things are very simple. They run, they function, and they're accurate. And once you've used one for a little while, it's nothing to be scared of. But yeah, that's the biggest thing we have to overcome, is just getting people to put them in their hands and be comfortable with them.
It's when you think about it, an AR is like, in my opinion, almost a perfect hunting gun, because it's a proven design. Number one, they're dependable. They're going to run if it's a quality built gun, and I know Brenton's to be that. But beyond that, you guys have added accuracy to the mix as well.
You're exactly right. We've taken a traditional AR platform, which was used for the military and functioned for the military, and just taken all the slop out of it and made it a very tight tolerance rifle and very, very accurate. So yeah, they are the perfect platform to begin that with. And I mean, it's, a 5-shot capacity here in Michigan, which is fantastic. This
slop you're talking about, I get that. In a military situation where you're not concerned necessarily with long range accuracy in this, an AR style gun for the most part, but it's got to run. It's got to run in mud. It's got to run in sand. But when you do that, when you make the tolerances a little bit looser, the accuracy does suffer. So you guys address that, right?
Absolutely. We've tightened up all the tolerances on all these rifles. If you pick one up, there is no rattle. There's no noise. You might hear something from the spring in the magazine, but that would be about it. We've really, in order to do that, you have to put high-end components in as well. And I mean, that's kind of the difference in a Brenton. Everything is hand selected, built here in Michigan. It's a big deal to take an AR platform, which you are right, it is made just to run and function because it's in a military setting, and to make it an accurate, very, very accurate rifle and reliable. I mean, that's what we want.
When you build a gun like that, then that has tighter tolerances, is there a different type of a break-in period? Is break-in more important than if it was a gun not designed for such accuracy?
Absolutely. So oil is important, break-in time is important. Even your barrel, even the tight tolerance barrels that we use, that it is important to break those in correctly. We actually have a 15-minute video on YouTube, long form, and then we have some shorter videos that are going to be posted here in the next couple of weeks for that very reason, just to help out and let people know that there is a procedure for breaking these rifles in. But if you do it correctly, which, again, not very hard to do, just follow the instructions and make it happen. But when you do, you'll find that these things are just tack drivers.
Sub-MOA, what does that mean?
Sub-MOA. You're
Well,
caught me off
No,
guard.
no. You guys, what we used to say, Brenton, is sub MOA, minute of angle, which is what? At 100 yards, it's an inch off. 200 yards, it's 2 inches off, something like that. I mean, I don't pretend to be an expert, but that's what people have told me all along.
Yes, correct. So everyone wants to say sub MOA. I just tell everybody that when you pick up a Brenton rifle, if you're touching bullets at 100 yards, that's the goal of every rifle. But sub MOA is one of those things that's subject to every shooter, correct? You know, we can guarantee the guns are accurate and that they'll function like they're supposed to. We don't really get hung up on sub MOA. That's just a term for that's a term for the masses.
No, I got you. I hear what you're saying, Nick. But you bring up an interesting point that a Brenton rifle is going to be probably more accurate than most of the shooters behind that gun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, you know, your sub MOA is 1 inch at 100 yards and 2 at 200. But, you know, we are going to be more accurate. I mean, but it all depends on the shooter. It's just like talking about, you hear people say, I can shoot a deer at 400 yards. Well, ethically, and we want to say you should shoot him at 250 yards. So I guess it's all relative to the person. You know, I'm not saying I'm the most accurate person in the world, but behind a Brenton, I know I have the confidence to make the shot.
I hear what you're saying. You don't have it's. Confidence means a lot. I don't care if it's archery or if it's in a firearm. Confidence means a lot. And if you have a tool in your hands that you have more confidence in, I think it allows you to be a better hunter because it increases your confidence and increases your odds of making a good, quick, clean, humane killing shot, which is what all ethical hunters, and I believe most hunters are ethical. That's what we want.
I think that's what we all strive for. When we go out west elk hunting, I shoot at 100 yards with my archery equipment, but that doesn't mean I'm going to take a shot at 100 yards. So, you know, everybody wants that ethical kill.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the thing I think that has helped is, you know, the 350 Legend, the 450 Bushmaster. Are those your hottest two calibers these days?
The 350 Legend definitely is probably the hottest caliber out there right now. Also the 6mm ARC, which is kind of taking over in the coyote hunting area, hog hunting, that kind of thing. But 350 Legend has to be the top seller in our area for at least the whitetail application.
Do you sell most of your guns in Michigan, or are you doing business nationwide now?
So we're nationwide, always looking for a couple more dealers, but we have, I think, 9 stocking dealers in Michigan alone. So yeah, we're selling all over the place.
Can you buy them online?
We can buy them online. If you just go to BrentonUSA.com, you can buy one right there. That's probably the easiest way. We ship them right to your FFL.
BrentonUSA.com is the website, BrentonUSA.com. Nick, tell me more about how this works. So you can't, in today's world, you cannot have this gun sent directly to your residence.
You cannot. So you will get online. You'll fill out the paperwork that says you have an FFL. We'll double check to make sure the FFL will receive it in your state. And after that, we'll process it, package it, and send it to your FFL. You can go right to that gun shop and pick it up. Usually there's a $25 to $45 transfer fee, depending on how friendly you are with your FFL person to do the paperwork.
We're talking with Nick Carpenter, the owner of Brenton USA Firearms, Michigan-based Brenton USA, the website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com. We've got to take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, I want to talk more with Nick about this concept of building guns, selling guns in today's world. I mean, most of us listening here to this show right now, we get it. It's a tool, right? But not everybody sees it that way, especially in AR style. I think they're great guns. I have a Brenton 350 Legend that I absolutely love. When I go into the deer woods for firearm season, I have a Brenton 350 Legend in my hands. My grandson Carter shot his first doe with that Brenton 350 Legend, so I'm a big fan. BrentonUSA.com is the website, BrentonUSA.com. More with Nick Carpenter after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. Think about that. 1946. Boning has been making archery products for more than 3/4 of a century. Their original product was something called Ferrultite, and that was a glue to fix broadheads to wooden arrow shafts and aluminum arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to innovate, come up with new products, new manufacturing processes, and I suspect while you are in the archery woods this fall, you have Boning products somewhere on your rig. If not, I would encourage you to check them out. Also great for target archers as well. The website is boning.com, B-O-H-N-I-N-G, boning.com. So compare Boning Archery, a company that's been around for more than 75 years, a Michigan-based company, to Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, BrentonUSA.com, also a Michigan-based company. Their owner, Nick Carpenter, is with us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Nick, when you look at a company like Boning that's been around for so long, compare that to a Brenton that's relatively new, it's a pretty exciting world you find yourself in, I would suspect.
Absolutely. We're excited in the next couple of years to see where all this goes, and that's a God-given thing in my opinion. So
well,
here we are.
I'm with you on that. That's for sure. So let's go back to this AR style, the AR platform people call it. For folks who don't know what that is, can we break that down? Can you describe what AR means and how it's different than the old slug gun or the bolt action?
Sure. So your AR platform is, again, a military platform rifle, America's rifle. You see it in the tactical world pretty much on the regular. They are gas-powered. It's a little bit different than your average bolt gun. But with all that comes that military technology and that function and that proven effectiveness. So what we've done is taken that baseline and improved it to where we are, holding that accuracy out there like your bolt guns or your old slug guns did. But again, the slug guns are way different. I mean, the reason the 450 and the 350 even came about with that straight wall cartridge is people were trying to get something that shot a little further. And that's kind of the space that fell in for Brenton and kind of why we are what we are. When that straight wall cartridge became available in the 450, that's kind of where we cut our teeth. And made a name, I guess. So the 450 allowed you to shoot. I would say that old slug gun would shoot 100 to 150 yards accurately. I know people will say, no, Nick, it'll shoot 200 yards, it'll shoot 250. But again, we always talk about ethical shots. And, so when the 450 came about, ethically, you can kill a deer at 250 yards, and we can pattern them at 300 yards. So, we were all excited about that, and I know everybody in Michigan was too.
Oh, yeah, the straight-walled cartridge really changed everything, and it really opened the door for a company like Brenton because you can make the 350s, you can make the 350 Legends, the 450 Bushmasters. And are those your two most popular calibers here in Michigan, Nick?
Hands down, right now, they are, absolutely. The 350, I would say, is more popular, and the only reason the 350 over the 450 is more popular at this point, a little faster, a little flatter, still has the same knockdown power. If you use 175 to 180 grain bullet, you're still going to have that 250-yard knockdown power that the 450 has with less wind drag. It's just an overall a nicer round. Plus, it's a whole lot easier on the shoulder than the 450 is. And, I mean, there's 6 of us designing these rifles and building these rifles in-house, and all of us have switched from the 450 to the 350.
Really? Well, that says a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, that says a lot right there. And it's a good all-around caliber too.
Right. I'm not saying the 450 is not a great caliber, but my kids love it. Let's put it that way. It's a whole lot easier to shoot.
And another area that I see that has really embraced the AR platform is the coyote hunters, the predator hunters.
Yes, absolutely. That market is just flooded right now with people that are getting into it. The thermal. I think thermals changed the game there. That made it a little bit more accessible for people to be effective coyote hunting. And, right along with that, the thermals go really well with a tactical rifle or an AR platform rifle. So that made it really great for Brenton to fit in that spot, because what we do is we take a really nice rifle and make it a heck of a lot more accurate. So.
All right, so right now here in Michigan, we're in the bow season. A lot of people thinking about bow hunting, but the firearm season is not that far out there. If we wanted to get a Brenton rifle in time for gun season and get it sighted in, do we have time? How would we do that?
We're ready for you. You could order online or go to your local gun store and ask for one. But you're talking 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 business days, and we can have them shipped out the door right now for you. So there's plenty of time to get it sighted in, and I wouldn't want to go after one November 12th or something like that unless you bought it right from the store. But if you wanted one shipped to your FFL, absolutely, we could get that done for you.
So again, go to the website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com, pick out the gun you want. Or, they're on this. Jay's Sporting Goods has them. I saw them at Jay's too, so that's another option as well.
Yeah, Jay's has them. DNR Sports has them. Chipshawana, I think the store down there has them. Yeah, they're all over the place right around here.
And BrentonUSA.com. Congrats, Nick, on getting your hands on the company. I look forward to talking again. Good luck in the woods, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks for reaching out.
I appreciate it. Nick Carpenter of Brenton USA, the website, BrentonUSA.com, BrentonUSA.com, a Michigan-based company making AR-style, highly accurate, dependable hunting rifles. As good as it gets. BrentonUSA.com. We'll take a break, wrap up this first hour with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sandusky on WMIC. That's 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain on WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins, Michigan-based VersaSkins. Boy, with a change in the weather, that VersaSkins is going to feel pretty darned good. Warm, quality, wind-resistant, water-resistant. And the cool thing is, you can snap on and zip on an outer shell and change your camo pattern from snow to blaze orange to upland or whatever it is. The website, VersaSkins.com, VersaSkins.com. And if you need big sizes, I'm talking like 4, 5, 6X, VersaSkins can help you out. Go to the website, VersaSkins.com. That's VersaSkins.com. Want to wrap up this first hour now with Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, one of the guys behind Michigan's premier outdoor publication. Tom, welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
Just fine, Mike. Thank you.
So, listen, the weather has changed a little bit. Have you had a chance to get out and take advantage of it at all?
Absolutely, Mike. Here's how I take on the good weather. I sit around when it's 75 and 80, and then when it drops down to 40 and we get a 25-mile-an-hour gusty wind, then we decide to take our pontoon out of the lake, off the lake, and take our dock down. See, that's how we work.
I'm laughing because I can so completely relate to that. For some reason, I had an epiphany, and last week when it was dead calm and 80 degrees, I did pull mine. So I was ahead of the curve for about the first time in my entire life, I think. So I get it. I get it.
Yeah. That's the way we roll, though. But we're doing great.
Well, it's not like you don't have anything else going on. You wrapped up the big outdoor weekend, but then you've got this monthly issue coming out, and I gotta believe that by the time folks hear this show, the November edition's out there, isn't it? November issue?
Absolutely right. It's on their newsstand right now, and it's in the U.S. mail, going to their direct mailbox, and it's loaded with some great stories like we always brag about because we got such great writers, and and the November issue is no exception, and it's got some great stuff in it.
What are we going to find, Tom?
Well, what's really fascinating is we got a Pope and Young elk story, a Michigan Pope and elk story that's going to make the Pope and Young record books, and we got that story. Jerry Lambert's picked up on that story. It's a real nice story, a do-it-yourself Michigan elk hunt.
Oh, really?
No guides. He did it on his own. Yep, on public land. So, it's a great story. We cover that. And, of course, with November, we've got lots of great information for for the deer hunters. We've got a nice piece on getting your venison better tasting by the way you handle it and what you do with it and how you age it, and some great tips there. So we've got that in there. And Adam Lewis does a great piece on us about how old should that deer be when you harvest it. Where are we looking? We always talk about, age class and improving that age class, but he's got some interesting stats and interesting information about when we should take, how old that deer should be when we take it.
I obviously haven't read that. I obviously haven't read that piece yet, but that sounds like that could be really interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it'll surprise you too, because we're so used to, you got to get 5, 6, and 7, and some of the information he's got in there will really surprise you that that's not necessarily true. So I'll leave it at that and let everybody pick up that November issue.
Nice tease, Tom. A real nice tease. You're a pretty good marketer.
There we go.
Hey, how do your people? Go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say we've got a hot topic. I know you talked to John Eberhard a lot about it, but we got a good piece on saddle hunting as well. It just basically points out when to use it, how to use it, what's the advantages of using it. And I think a lot of people out there are, we've been captivated by this saddle hunting, and this points out a lot of good things of why you should use it, when you should use it.
How do your people, your writers, consistently find these topics, these people, these story ideas?
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's great. I mean, obviously we got technology now, but and what really helps too is geographically they're spread out all across the state of Michigan. So we've got people in the southwest corner, we've got them in the northeast corner. So that's so nice that they've got their own connection of people, and that just makes it an asset for us because we reap the benefits of that for sure.
So you don't, you're not like an assignment editor. You don't say, okay, Joe Blow, I want you to do a story on this. They come to you with these topics.
Probably 95% of it, Mike. Every now and then when we get, people will contact us and say, we've got this great hunt going, or we've had this great, and sometimes if it's a local, we'll assign it, or we'll ask, or I'll put it up on my list of writers. Anybody interested in doing this story? Sounds like a great story, and,
Gotcha.
And usually they grab it right away. So, yeah, it works out fantastic. Hey, we just run with it, and it makes my job so much easier.
Well, you've been doing a great job for a lot of years. Yeah. Good luck getting that boat and the dock out of the water, Tom, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Mike. Take care.
Tom Campbell of Woods-n-Waternews, the website woods-n-waternews.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, in fact, Tom mentioned this, talking about getting the most from your deer, the most from your venison. Mike Horswill of Jay's Sporting Goods is going to check in on that. He is an absolute expert. Then Nick Green of MUCC is in the duck blind. I'm hoping, Jonathan, and praying. So is John. He's got a good signal, and we'll talk to him. That's coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network, as you know, on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And I always make this distinction, and I don't think it really matters to you, but it does to me. Outdoor Magazine is first and foremost a radio show. It is produced, recorded, syndicated, distributed as a radio show. And I got to be honest, I think that's kind of cool because when you look at, statewide syndicated outdoor radio shows, there aren't that many of them out there these days, at least when you compare them to outdoor podcasts. And the line is really becoming blurred. I'll have people say, hey, I heard your podcast, and I'd like, well, where'd you listen to it? And they say on their local radio station. Well, it wasn't a podcast. And I know you don't care, but I do feel obligated to make this distinction because I do think the best way to listen to Outdoor Magazine radio is on your local radio station if you can. If your local AM or FM station doesn't carry all 3 hours of the show, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast version of the show out there? Now, you can hear that podcast on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page and just about anywhere else. Honestly, anywhere else you can hear a podcast, including Amazon Music and Audible and Apple Music and iHeartRadio, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, the whole 9 yards, even YouTube. Yeah, I put the podcast on YouTube. I do like podcasting, though. I think podcasting is an excellent outlet for anybody who has a story to tell or who wants to talk about a given subject. Podcasting is wonderful. And I do podcasts. And to me, a podcast is something that doesn't air on your local radio station. I do podcasts for offshore tackle, primal outdoors, polar craft boats. And when we're done here in the studio recording this week's radio show, we're going to record this month's Angler Quest podcast with Mr. Angler Quest himself, Brad Dupuis, talking about fall fishing opportunities. So keep an ear out for that. Regardless, though, of how you are hearing my voice, when you are hearing my voice, whatever media venue you're listening to, I do certainly appreciate it. I've been doing this a long time. I have no plans to give it up anytime soon. Of course, I do know that my plans and God's plans are not always in sync. But I couldn't be here without you, and I do appreciate it. I also appreciate the opportunity each week to talk with folks who are very, very knowledgeable, in fact, experts in whatever subject we're talking about. And right now I want to talk about processing your own venison. I grew up in a house where we processed our own venison. As I got a little bit older and time became more of a concern, when I would shoot a deer, I would send it off to the local processor. So those are two great options, right? If you have a local processor that you trust and, you're willing to spend a few bucks to get it done, go right ahead. If you want to take more control over that situation and do it in the way that you want it to be done, then you might want to consider processing your own venison. Mike Horswill is a guy that I've got to know over the years who honestly knows more about this than anybody else that I know. Now, Mike happens to work at Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com, but he does his processing, outside of Jay's. It's not something he does for Jay's. He does it for himself. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about that. Hey, Mike, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Mike. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. First of all, thank you for your advice on that crossbow that I picked up last spring at Jay's. I've been very happy with that. You're a knowledgeable man in that area as well, and I appreciate it.
Well, you're more than welcome, and I'm sure you'll be happy with it. I also have the same brand of crossbow myself, and it's been very good to me.
Oh, excellent. Glad to hear that. So we are fairly early right now in the archery season. Have you had a chance to get out the knives yet?
Not yet. No, I've not even sat on stand. I've seen a couple bucks, but the warm spell we had early in the season kind of put things off and put them on hold. But now the deer activity's really increased as of last week when the cold snap came, and I've been seeing a lot more deer activity. So I'm getting fired up about getting out and sitting. But I've had a lot of things going on, and I find the older I get, I don't spend as much time on stand. 25, 30 years ago, I never missed a night in bow season. I was out every day. But now, getting a little older, I'm not as motivated to be out and be on stand as much, but I still love being out there. I'm not as driven to be out there as much, but I still enjoy it just as much as I ever did.
And can I say you're smarter about it? You have a little age, a little wisdom, and you take those days that, I could go out there tonight and I could enjoy an evening in a tree stand, but I probably won't see something. Or I could get some stuff done around the house and go out tomorrow when it's going to be 30 degrees colder and probably see deer, right?
Yeah, that's a fact, and I think that applies to all outdoor activities. I find it's true with fishing. I watch the weather patterns for fishing. I watch them for hunting. A few years back, I had my best bow hunting season ever in 2018, and that was due to the fact that the first time I went out on stand wasn't till, I believe it was close to the 20th of October, but that was the first cold snap, the first heavy frost. And I went out and I sat and I shot a really nice buck. So it pays off to pay attention to the weather patterns, and especially as you get older, with your own experience, you start to understand the habits of the animals a little better. So you can kind of narrow it down and take a better guess. But I've also learned that about the time you think you have it figured out, they have a different plan as well. So you get a dose of reality once in a while when you think you've got it all figured out.
Boy, ain't that the truth. And that's one of the cool things I love about these outdoor passions that we have, that you never really master it.
That's true. You can strive for excellence, and you can do everything, do your work, do your homework, and try to be successful. And essentially what you're doing is you are increasing your odds. So there is no guarantee in the field, as we all know.
Let's talk about processing your own venison, Mike. Is it a money-saving thing, or is it a personal satisfaction thing?
I think it's a little of both. I believe that mainly it's a personal satisfaction thing. We all like to know where our meat is coming from that we bring to the table for our families. We know exactly what we have when we handle it ourselves, when we take it from field to table. We're in total control of the level of cleanliness and the quality of the product you get. So I think in that aspect, it's a better choice if you really want to know what you are getting back. But as you mentioned at the onset, if you have a processor that you trust, I mean, these guys do a fantastic job, especially considering how many that they process a year. I mean, they hit it hard. They know what they're doing. They're efficient. They're fast. But I believe there's a certain level of personal satisfaction when you can go through the work and put in the time and bring that to the table for your family. You know exactly what you have.
How much time do you figure you have in an animal from the time you put it on the ground until it's all processed? How long does that take?
It takes me about a couple days or a few days. I can do it if I was to just start from hanging the animal and getting it in the freezer. I could do it in about 6-7 hours if I did it just, hammered it out and hurried. But I believe that it's easier, especially, again, now that I've gotten older, I like to break it down into different steps and different sessions. And by the time I break it down from the skinning and quartering, down to the deboning and cleaning up the meat, down to the processing it into the salamis and jerkies or steaks or whatever I want, it's about a 3-day process for me.
You talk about hanging that animal. If somebody shot a deer early in the season when it was so unseasonably warm, that's a problem. That can be a problem, right?
It certainly can, yes. And the main enemy against that would be the flies. When you've got the flies swarming that carcass, if they can get onto the flesh, then bad things can happen in a short amount of time. However, if you don't skin the animal immediately, if you leave the hide on, that offers a certain level of protection. Another important thing is getting it in the shade, getting it inside where the flies can't get at it, the sun can't get at it. And if it gets cool enough at night, that can buy you a little bit of time. But if you skin it immediately, that puts you under the gun to where you must get that thing quartered and refrigerated.
So is it your advice then to leave that skin on, leave the hide on for a while?
I always do, and that allows the carcass to bleed out nicely. It keeps the flies off it. It helps preserve the meat from drying out. So I've always been a strong advocate for leaving the hide on and letting it hang for as long as I can or as long as the weather will permit.
Head up or head down?
Head down for me, always. I've done it both ways. As a kid, we always hung them from the head. What I find with that, there's 2 reasons I like hanging them from the back end and with the head down. And one is it's easier to start at the hind quarters and the hocks and pull it down over the front shoulders down toward the head. You don't get as much hair on the meat. It's easier for me to skin them that way. If you rig up a hoist system or something, you can actually incorporate that tool to help pull the hide off the animal. You don't have to start around the neck and do that cumbersome cutting of the hide and pull it around the front shoulders. And as anybody who's done it knows, it can be very difficult going from the head down.
Hang tight, Mike.
Like
listen, Mike, I got to take a break, but I want to follow up on this because I respect your opinion tremendously, and there is a lot of talk about head up or head down. So we'll follow up on that and much more with Mike Horswill of Jay's Sporting Goods after the break here in Outdoor Magazine. The website for Jay's, jaysportinggoods.com. That's jaysportinggoods.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX, and you can hear us north of the bridge. Let's go to the Sioux. Let's go to News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and Angler Quest and Polar Craft headquarters as well. And the fishing now off Linwood Beach is going to get nothing but better for probably perch and certainly walleye. The docks will stay in. The folks at Linwood Beach will tell me the docks will stay in as long as they possibly can. So if you want to take advantage of some great fall fishing, keep Linwood Beach in mind. If you're putting the boat away for the wintertime, also keep Linwood Beach in mind because they can help you out with that as well. The website, linwoodbeachmarina.com, linwoodbeachmarina.com. Excellent facilities, excellent location, excellent people. linwoodbeachmarina.com. Right now, talking with another guy who I consider to be an excellent guy. His name is Mike Horswill. He happens to work at Jay's Sporting Goods, jaysportinggoods.com. But we're talking now about the topic of processing your own venison. Mike, before the break, I brought up at the last minute the concept of hanging the buck or doe, head up or head down. Let's pick back up on that again, please. What do you like to do?
I like to hang them head down. I found that it's easier. I've done it both ways, and by all means do it the easiest way that works for you. However, there's a couple reasons I like head down. The one reason, as I mentioned, was the ease of skinning. Throughout the whole process, I like to use gravity as my friend and a tool when I'm skinning an animal and even quartering. So I like to hang them from the hind end with the head down. It's easier to get the skin around the front shoulders and bring everything off around the head. The other reason I prefer that is when you talk about letting the carcass drain out and bleed out, all the blood is going to go down into the head, into the front part of the deer, and actually essentially end up in the head that you cut off in the end. Whereas if you hang it from the head, all those bodily fluids, all the blood and everything is going to settle down into the hind quarters. And anyone who's hung a deer and aged it for any length of time and had it head up, you'll find when you take those hind quarter sections off where your prime round pieces are, there's going to be some blood left and settled into those pieces of meat. So you're better off as far as draining the animal as well by hanging it from the hind end.
When you talk about aging or hanging an animal, how long, in your opinion, should you do that?
I like at least a few days. I've hung them up to a week if weather permitting. Now, you don't want it to get froze solid because then you have a problem. But if it's cool enough at night, ideal hanging weather in my mind is 50, mid-50s during the day, maybe high 30s, around 40 at night. If you get those kind of nights, or even if it dips around the freezing level at night, if it gets up around 50 during the day, that's going to cool that carcass down really nice. It's going to allow those meat fibers to start to break down. And if you have that luxury, weather permitting, then I'd say 3-4 days, 5 days is ideal for something like that.
Which you just described the weather that we're having right now as we're recording the show.
Yes, typically in bow season, especially mid to the later bow season before the firearm opener, usually conditions are ideal for that type of scenario. you get into rifle season, middle of November, you're more at risk, especially now your late season hunts, your muzzle loader, second bow season. You really got to be aware of them freezing up on you. And as I mentioned, if you have one freeze up on you solid, then you've got a problem. You have to bring it in somewhere where it's warm, allow it to thaw so you can work on it. So if you can avoid having it freeze solid, that'll benefit you greatly.
Well, freezing it doesn't hurt the meat. It just makes it a pain to work on, right? Because your fingers get cold
Exactly.
and it's hard to cut.
Yes, that's a fact. It will not hurt the meat at all. If it freezes solid, you can get it in somewhere where you may have heat. If you have the luxury of a gentle heat source in your shed or your hanging area, you could just put the heat on kind of low for an afternoon. I'd say, 5-6 hours, and that'll make the meat workable. And you'll find that it's still really chilled through, but it doesn't hurt it at all if it does happen to get froze up on you. It's just difficult to work, and it's hard to get it back to where it is workable.
Okay, so you hang it for a few days. You still got the hide on it. You've let it age. You got a couple hours. You can work on it now. So you skin it, and then what's the next process?
The next step would be I'd take the front shoulders off. I would take off the front shoulders, and then I would remove the back straps. You start just where the hams are in the body, and everybody, pretty much if you cut your own, you can remove the back straps. You know how that works. And then I would continue to remove all the meat off the neck area and the front end. You got your rib cage and all the flanks and anything that looks good that you want to pull off there. I mean, it pays to take your time and try to get it clean. As I'm quartering, I'm mindful of trying to clean up the meat as much as possible during the quartering process instead of just whacking off a big hunk of meat that's still got a large layer of fat cap or silver skin on it. If I can whittle off all that fat prior to taking it off the bone, then that benefits me when I go to clean up the meat. So it's really worth your extra time to be aware of that. If you can, because all that fat and all that extra silver skin is going to get pulled off anyway, and it's a lot easier to remove it when it's in a big chunk as opposed to a small piece that you've cut off. So I go ahead and I take the hindquarters last after I've removed all the neck meat and all the stuff around the ribs. So first I've got the shoulders off, I got the back straps, I clean up the neck, rib cage, flanks, and then I just take the hindquarters last.
Are the different cuts, the different muscle groups, are they obvious when you're in there working on that animal?
They are, especially in the hindquarters after you've done it a couple times. I mean, you've got your top round, bottom round, and your sirloin. So they are fairly obvious, especially if you've done it once or twice. It might be a little cumbersome until it's a learning process. There's a little bit of a learning curve there if you've never done it. But now we have the luxury of all these tutorials and everything on YouTube, and you can find information everywhere. It may benefit you if you've never done it to maybe consult the internet or gain information from fellow hunters that may walk you through it. But the most difficult ones are probably the front shoulders, boning out the front shoulders, and the other pieces of meat around the neck area and around the rib cage and the flanks. But the hindquarters are fairly obvious. You can see the seams that separate the different muscle groups. There's 3 main muscle groups in the hindquarters, so it's not that difficult to navigate around them.
And are you then making that meat into jerky or roast or burger? What's your preference?
When I was harvesting deer when my children were smaller and at home, I made everything into steak and burger because it was a food staple for us here at the house. Now that my children are gone, I got grandkids. We don't use venison as much as a main food staple, so I've leaned more toward I make jerky. I like the back straps for steaks. I take a lot of the grinding meat, and I'll make that into salami, summer sausage, that type of thing.
That process is obviously more involved when you start doing that. I mean, burger's the easiest, right?
Yeah, it's easy. Just push it through the grinder and pack it. And there's a lot of nice things out there that can make your job easier. The Lem makes a packaging system that has bags, and you simply put a stuffing tube on your grinder. You grind the meat straight into a bag. They have a taper. You smack it through a taper, and you've got a neat 1 or 2 pound package ready to go in the freezer. So it's easy. Burger is the easiest by far.
Do you mix anything with your burger?
I do not, but it's a personal preference. You can get a good quality pork butt, maybe some. I had a friend that was health conscious about fat, and he liked adding ground turkey to his burger, and he absolutely loved it. But I just go with straight venison because that way you're not adding anything that may be possibly a contaminant. If you go with a cheap beef product and you're not sure of the source, then I'd be leery about other bacteria. You know, it may affect the purity of your meat.
You know, that's a really good point. Why would you take a beautiful, clean, pure deer and mix a low grade something else with it just to get some fat, some moisture in there? That's a good point.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are limited and they want to make that meat go as far as possible.
Well, yeah, that's true.
So I understand they want to get the most out of their money. There's soy additives, there's other things that I have never used, but back in the day, when I started doing it, I would go to the grocery store and I'd get ground beef on sale, and I would add it to my burger in a small ratio, not much, but enough to give it enough fat to stick together in the pan when I pattied it up if I was going to make a straight-up hamburger. And that didn't hurt anything. Back in those days, you didn't have to worry as much about E. coli or anything, and plus local markets have a local source of meat, so I trusted them, and I never had a problem, but I became more leery of it as the years went by, and E. coli got to be a thing, and you got more bacteria and more contaminants, so I just cut it out altogether. I just go straight venison now.
Mike, how much meat are we going to get out of the average Michigan whitetail, if there is such a thing as an average whitetail?
You're probably going to get about 40% of the hanging weight back by the time you remove connective tissue and bone and everything. If you get your average size Michigan deer around mid-Michigan here, the average, yearling deer, your forkhorns and first-year bucks or yearling deer are, 95 to 105 pounds. You're going to get maybe 35 pounds of meat out of that. I mean, pure, usable, clean meat. If you get a nicer, more mature deer up in hanging weight, once they're field dressed, if they come in around 160, 170, you're going to get 55, maybe 60 pounds out of that deer. Yeah, that's what I found. I weigh all my deer.
Oh, you do? What? All right. So, how many 200-pound deer have you seen?
Not many. I'll tell you. I've had some bruisers on the scale. Now we're talking field dressed dead weight. We're not talking live weight on the hoof because that would increase it. But I've cut some bruiser mature bucks. I had an Isabella County farm-fed 12-point typical bruiser buck, just a massive, beautiful trophy deer. And that came in at 198. He didn't crack the 200-pound, but I guessed he was 210, 225. Me and my buddies are looking at it, and we're just going, that deer's over 200 easy. I put it on the scale, dressed, it was 198. So That's the heaviest I've had on my scale. And I've had several in the 185 to 195 range that were just absolute brutes.
Mike, we didn't even get a chance to talk about jerky or salami or anything else, but I'll tell you, I do appreciate your time. I know there at Jay's you have a lot of the processing equipment there, jsportinggoods.com, jsportinggoods.com. We'll take a break when we come back. Nick Green of MUCC checks in from the Duck Blind here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT, that's 600 AM, 95.3 FM. I want to turn our attention now to Michigan United Conservation Clubs. I have much respect for this group. I think they do a very good job in keeping an eye on outdoor-related issues and topics in Lansing and beyond. Nick Green is their Chief Information Officer. Nick is also an avid outdoorsman, as you would want for somebody in that position, and I think we're checking in with him now as he's in the Duck Blind. Nick, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike. And we're out here enjoying the duck hunt right now. We got a hen wood duck stalking her way into her decoy.
I notice you're talking a little bit softer. So what part of the state are you in, Nick?
We're on the Asable up in northern Michigan. Really special with kind of the impoundments and marsh system here. So it's a real neat ecosystem, and it's been a good weekend. A lot of hunters out, which is good to see. A lot of ducks around, so we got a good north wind the last few days, and it's pushed some ducks in.
Boy, I was thinking the change in weather really has helped the waterfowl hunters out, hasn't it?
It has. It moved a bunch of birds in, and even Saginaw Bay, I heard reports of just species we haven't seen yet this year already showing up. So it's going to be good, and I imagine it's going to start getting good for bow hunters here too with this weather coming in.
Hey, I think of you as an upland bird hunter. I didn't realize you were a waterfowl guy too.
I am. I actually enjoy waterfowl hunting a little more than upland. It's easier when you got a boat, not so much walking. But yeah, I like anything to do with a dog.
So that's what I was going to ask you. What the appeal is? It's the dog work.
It's the dog work. I mean, it's really about being out there with a dog, having that kind of partnership bond. And I spend a lot of time in the off season training my dog. So a lot of it for me is a lifestyle. It's not just hunting season. It's a year-round thing.
And duck hunting can be kind of social too. I don't know if you got somebody else out there with you, but if you got a group of guys, you can talk, you can visit. It's not like deer hunting where you have to be so quiet.
No, and I'm fortunate this morning. I'm joined by my 73-year-old dog trainer. So he got me started dog hunting hunting over dogs and training my dogs. And he came up this weekend and spent the weekend with us. So
that's
he's
wonderful.
Been in the marsh for 50 years.
The stories he has and the things you can learn from him.
Absolutely. Even if we don't pull the trigger, it's a good day.
Have you pulled the trigger yet today? And not that it matters, but have you?
I did. I missed a wood duck at about 20 yards.
I don't know how you guys hit those things at all. So listen, what from a business perspective, anything going on out of Lansing right now we should be aware of?
Absolutely. So when your readers are hearing this, we're hoping to have commercial guiding have been voted out of the House, going back to the Senate for concurrence, which means it should go to the governor's desk, we're hoping, in the next couple of weeks. And as a reminder, this is kind of setting a framework for our guides here in Michigan. It's a very, very low bar. It's, have liability insurance. It's BCPR first aid certified, and it's a minimal fee. So it's something we've been working on for 15 years, and we're hoping to finally get it across the finish line on this week.
15 years.
Yeah, it's been, in this some form of this bill, it started out pretty strict, a lot of regulations on guides, and it's been watered down. And, some people are on both sides of the aisle, think it should be stronger, think it should be weaker, but it's a good spot to start from, and it gives us a spot legislatively to build on.
As I've told you before, Nick, I have so much respect for you guys there at MUCC and your level of patience. Now, whether you actually have that patience or not, but you appear to have patience, because I look at things like this 15 years of commercial guiding. I look at consent decree that went on forever and ever. Things move at a glacial pace sometimes in Lansing.
Anything with state government does. And, it's all on the whims of who comes into power, right? So if you switch from a Republican to a Democrat, then you can, everything you've worked on can be upturned. But this guiding, we're lucky, has held R's and D's. So we're pretty sure we can get this across the finish line. But yeah, it's tough in Lansing, and you're always thinking about how to get it done at the end of the day. Anything
else coming down the pike we should be aware of?
Nope, I got 2 wood ducks swimming in, so when I let you go, I'm probably going to shoot these.
You know what? I'm going to let you go right now and let you take care of that. In fact, we'll leave the mic open. You do what you got to do, Nick. Let's go. Let's go for it. Go for it. Let's hear it.
All righty. Thanks, Mike.
All right, we got Nick Green. He's in the duck blind right now. I'm going to move my headphones because I think he's going to shoot here. He's got a couple of wood ducks. Too far.
They're coming in, though.
Oh, they're coming in. All right.
You guys just take care. I'm going to let you go.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Nick. Doggone it. I wanted to hear that, too. I thought for sure he was going to take those woodies while we were on the microphone right there. I tell you what he didn't want. He didn't want to miss them. He didn't want to miss them while he was live. That's what it is. Anyway, Nick, I appreciate your time. Nick Green of MUCC, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. You can become a member of MUCC. Go to the website, again, MUCC.org. There actually used to be a promo code Avery, and I quit pushing it because the the cost to join MUCC is so minimal. I thought, why try to, take a few more bucks, a couple of bucks out of their pocket when they can use that for conservation and wildlife issues? So MUCC.org is the website. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment. Now I'm really curious. Did he get those woodies or not? This week's Ask Avery question, and it's one that I'm kind of hesitant to get into. It deals with Mitch Rampolla and the Rampolla buck. So I'm going to address that again. I don't know the answer to it. I've had some strong thoughts, and now I question it. So we'll talk about that. And then coming up in hour number 3, Lance Valentine on fall trophy walleye fishing, plus Dixie Dave coming up at hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Tawas, WIOS. That's 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. The Ask Avery segment is something we came up with, it's been a few years ago now. And this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show. It's brought to you by the good folks at Security Credit Union. They love to work with outdoors men and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And again, this is your chance to get involved in the content of the show, a topic you want to talk about, a topic you want to hear about, a topic you want to learn more about. And they can be questions you want me to answer directly, or you would like me to submit to somebody else, the feds or DNR, somebody that maybe I have access to that you don't. The best way to get those questions to me is to send me an email, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. This week, I cannot attribute this to just one person, but it's something that just keeps coming up and coming up and coming up. And this relates to an event 25 years ago. Just about this time of year here in Michigan. A guy named Mitch Rampolla shot what potentially could have been a new world record whitetail in northern Michigan. I got involved in this peripherally because I had talked to Mitch, I had interviewed Mitch, I had been to Mitch's house. I had gotten word ahead of time that he was on this record book buck. And actually, when he shot it, I had him on the radio show. And he talked about it. Now, unfortunately, back then, we didn't keep an archive of the show. I would give anything now to be able to put my hands on that interview. It doesn't exist. There are some excerpts from it floating around the internet that I did not grant anybody and didn't authorize, but I don't have it. I have been saying for years, I have been an absolute believer in the validity of that buck, that it was a real buck, that it was taken legally, and that it should have been a world record. Through a series of events, Mitch decided not to submit that buck as a world record. I don't know the exact reasons why. I don't think anybody knows other than Mitch. I will tell you this, that Mitch is a guy who is more interested in dealing with whitetails than he is with people. Like I said, I've been to his house. You can, if you go to YouTube, you can see my interviews with Mitch Rampolla. Very, very impressive guy. So I have been absolutely convinced that this was a real buck. Until very recently, something happened that started to make me question it. And I'm not saying that I don't believe it now, but it was the first situation that made me even question it. I did a podcast with a guy named Kevin Vistison. He's a Michigan guy. He does the Deer Hunter podcast, an excellent, excellent show. And he had me on there, and I defended the Rampolla buck. And he did a series of these podcasts, and I listened to every one of them. Well, a few episodes after I did mine, Kevin brought a taxidermist on the show, a guy from down south. And he started talking about if you look at the pictures of these deer, they just don't look right. They just don't make sense. And Kevin told me, he said, Avery, once you hear these conversations, you will never look at those pictures the same way again. And unfortunately, I heard those conversations, and I can't ever look at those pictures the same way again. There's just something about them that just makes me wonder. So I went from a guy who was an adamant, vehement supporter and proponent of Mitch and the fact that this buck is real. There is now some seed of doubt in the back of my mind. I wish I knew the truth. I have actually reached out to Mitch several times. I would love to have him on the show. I'd love to go put a camera on him and just sit down and talk with him. I don't think he's going to find a friendlier audience than I am because, again, this guy's the real deal. But when people say, why are you now starting to question it? It's not that I'm questioning the validity. I'm not convinced to the level that I was before I heard that interview with the taxidermist. And that taxidermist didn't even work on Mitch's buck. Now, there is a Mitch Rampolla Facebook page out there. It's not Mitch's, but it's people in support of him. I would encourage you to check that out. They make some very strong arguments in favor of it. I want it to be real. I'm still leaning toward the fact that it is real. Mitch, reach out to me. You have my phone number. Let's talk. A big thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making the Ask Avery segment possible each week. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. Coming up after the top of the hour, we're going to change gears here a little bit and talk about some fall fishing with Sir Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin. And then we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. 25 years the Rampolla buck has been out there and haunting the whitetail world in some ways. Kind of an interesting story, isn't it? And I don't think we'll ever know the real answer. Hour 3 of Outdoor Magazine coming up.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery. Thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across this great state of Michigan. And isn't it interesting how the weather has changed so much since the last time that we talked? That cold front came in and everything changed. I mean, you could just, we've had frost at our house now, not on the ground, not on the grass, but up on the roof this morning when I came in here into the studio and we're recording, midweek, we actually had frost. It's an interesting time of year. It's a great time of year. I mean, you look at the different seasons that are open right now. Actually, pheasant season opens up here real soon. Upland bird hunting is open. Waterfowl season is open now. Deer season and that cold weather really got the deer up moving. But let's not forget about fishing. Some of the best fishing of the year is coming up. Now, you might earn those fish. You might get cold. You might have to be out there in some waves. But really, if you want to take a trophy fish, and I'm thinking right now in particular walleye, but muskies as well, fall is one of the best times to be out there. When I think about walleye fishing, there's a lot of names, a lot of faces that come to mind, but always Lance Valentine is in there. Lance is a good friend of mine. I've known Lance for a lot of years. I mean, I go to Lance on a regular basis looking for advice and for information. The guy's got it dialed in. And he is joining us now in this third hour of the show to talk about this fantastic fall walleye fishing, and I suspect more as well. Sir Lancelot, welcome back to the show. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, Mikey. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. I couldn't be better because I always look forward to our chances to talk, Lance. You're just a wealth of information.
Well, I appreciate that. I always look forward to talking to you.
So listen, you've got, let's get this out of the way right off the bat. You've got an event coming up here in just a few weeks I want to make sure that we talk about.
Yeah, so November 2nd through the 5th down on Lake Erie out of Huron, Ohio will be our 20th year that we're actually doing our fishing education weekend. So it's 4 days of a big group of guys, anywhere from 60 to 80 guys, or 80 anglers. And we do, it's 4 days of fishing. It's breakfast together every morning, a fishing information meeting to kind of get everybody dialed in for the day. Everybody's on the water fishing. We're sharing information on the water so we can help each other kind of find out what's working, what's not working. We usually do a little informal educational workshop before dinner. We have dinner together as a group. Then we have a main seminar speaker doing a seminar for 45 minutes to an hour after dinner, and then a quick little fishing recap of the day. And then we start all over again the next day. So just 4 days of fishing education, getting a chance to go on the water, try something different, come back and say, hey, that didn't work. We'll let our staff get you dialed back in, get back out there and get it. And you're fishing one of the best places in the country right now to not only catch a bunch of really nice walleye, but have a chance to catch 11, 12, 13-pounder every day you're on the water. So we take care of everything other than your fishing expenses. And it's like I said, we've been doing it for 20 years. I think we're closing in on trip 65. This is either trip 61 or 62 of all the education weekends we've done, but it's our 20th year doing it, and we are excited about another great season. And this early fall definitely gets me excited. 20
years, Lance. It doesn't seem like it's been that long, or I guess maybe from your perspective, it seems like it's been 50. I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it's been that long. You know, this has gone so fast. You know, you start and you kind of just get into this, and you've been in this industry, and it just never stops, right? People think there's downtime, and it just never stops. You start at shows, you go to Detroit River, you go to the summertime, then you've got a little bit of time to kind of get caught up with all your paperwork and all your stuff and creating content, and then we're into fall fishing, and that just rolls. And you get a couple weeks for some family time at Christmas, and then we're back to show season again. So the years go. As a friend of mine once said, he said the days sometimes can be really long, but the years seem to be short. So that's kind of how we are. Sometimes the days get long, but the years just stack up.
I love this concept, though, of this. You can go to these, the show span shows and hear you and other guys talk and learn a lot. But when you take it to this next level, like your fishing weekend on the water, I mean, it doesn't get any more hands-on than that.
Yeah, the whole thing is you're going to go on the water. You're going to try something, and we want people to leave there better fishermen. So don't just go do what you do all the time. Try a new technique. Try something different. And then the whole thing is you try it for half a day. You come back and say, okay, I just didn't get this, or this didn't work right, or I can't get my offshore boards to run properly, or how do I get my crankbait? I don't understand the snap weight method to get my crankbait deep. We'll pull you aside. We'll have one of our staff guys go through it with you real quick, get you dialed in. It'll probably come up as a question in our evening seminar. We'll answer it in front of the whole group so everybody kind of gets that information, and then you're back on the water again the next day to actually try it and hopefully get dialed in. So it's a great way to not only catch fish, but leave there a better angler. We do a lot of work on the process of fishing, right? Finding fish, locating fish, are they active, are they not active, using your sonar, getting your lures to the right depth. We do a lot of that process, what we call the 8 steps. We do a lot of that. That kind of ingrains the idea of tournament fishing into your head. So when you leave here, no matter where you fish, no matter what you're fishing for, that process is always the same. So that's a big part of our weekend, as is very specific details to what we're doing in Ohio. And if you're an open water troller, whatever you learn fishing for walleye in the fall on Lake Erie goes and helps you become a better open water troller no matter where you go. So lots of things there to not only catch fish, meet some great people, but have a good time and learn to become a better angler.
So is this event open to the public, or is it just your closed group?
Open to the public. Anybody can come. If you have a boat but don't have a partner, sign up. We've got people that come. If you're someone who doesn't have a boat and doesn't have a partner, we call them non-boaters. Sign up and come. We'll get you on a boat. If you've got a boat but don't have a partner, sign up and come. We'll get somebody in your boat. So it's open to anybody, any skill level. It doesn't matter who you are. If you want to become a better walleye fisherman, this is definitely the place to do it.
What is it about Lake Erie in the fall that is just so special?
Well, there's 100 million walleye. That helps. The food base is fantastic, and up to this point is not diminishing. And where we fish, you've got everything you need for good fall fishing. You've got access to deep water. You've got very, very sharp drop-offs from the shallows to the deep water. It happens very quickly. You've got access to multiple rivers that are bringing in more stable, warm water, which is a big key in the fall. Huron, Ohio is actually in a little bit of a bay on the south shore. So anytime you've got a bay and you've got incoming flowing water, that's a huge plus for fall walleye. It's drawing bait into there, so these fish are out in this deep water migrating from east to west, and all of a sudden here comes this little bit warmer water. The bait slides into the bay. Here come the walleye. So Lake Erie itself is a great place to be, but where we specifically fish, Sandusky to Vermilion with Huron, Ohio, right in the middle, you've got everything you need. All the pieces you need to make a great fall walleye fishing spot are right there within a couple miles east or west of where we launch.
And honestly, if Mother Nature cooperates and allows you guys to get out there, you have a realistic shot at a double-digit size fish.
Every day. Every time your offshore planer board goes back, you can honestly believe this could be a 10-pound plus fish. That is definitely not uncommon. A lot of the times, they have the big events down there. I know you talked to Jason Fisher a little while ago. Mm-hmm. They had the Fall Brawl and the Walleye Slam, and most years that tournament or that event is won with a 13, 14-pound fish, and that fish almost always is caught within about 5 miles of the mouth of the Huron River. So not only are there a ton of fish, but we're in the right place. We're in the right place to catch the fish of a lifetime. If you pay attention to some details, and some of the things that we teach are going to help you, but we're definitely in the right place to not only catch a bunch of 6, 7, 8, 9-pound fish every day, but have a chance at an 11, 12, 13, 14-pounder every time you get a bite.
Can I assume that a tattle flag is not real necessary with the fish this size?
Yeah, a tattle flag is not necessary because you just look up, you go, I just had 3 boards over here, now there's only 2. That's usually what happens. But hey, what just happened? And you look back behind the boat, straight behind the boat, and you can see the nose of the board sitting there kind of pointing up. I think we got one. And a lot of times, you get talking when you're on a charter or you're out fishing, you get talking to your buddies, and a lot of times you'll actually hear a rod actually bend enough that it hits another rod. You'll actually hear the rod banging on another rod and another rod holder because the rod is bent so much from the weight of the fish. So it's definitely, you definitely don't need a tattle flag to see a bite down there in the fall.
So cooler water temps, bigger baits, different speeds, all these things. Listen, I got to take a break here, Lance, but I'm just kind of setting you up here for the next segment. We're talking with Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com, teachinfishin.com. I want to talk more with Lance about this fall trophy walleye fishery, in particular, specifically on Lake Erie. But look, this could apply in a lot of ways to Saginaw Bay, the Bays de Noc, Lake St. Clair, maybe to some extent. Anywhere where there are walleye in the fall, you got a chance of catching a big walleye. And I want to talk more with Lance about this. In particular, speed. Lance is one of these guys who got me thinking in the summertime, in warm weather, keep pushing your speeds up. Keep pushing your speeds up. And it wasn't that long ago conventional wisdom said you can't troll in cold waters. Well, I think that theory has probably been blown out of the water, pun intended. So we'll take a break here at the Outdoor Magazine Show. We'll talk more with Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishin, teachinfishin.com. And after that conversation, we'll wrap up this week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's coming up in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots, Michigan-based family-owned Killer Food Plots. Now, I realize right now you're probably out hunting in your Killer Food Plots, but it's never too early to, in the back of your mind thinking, okay, what can we do differently next year? How can we improve this habitat? How can we draw more deer or turkeys into the property? Well, Rich Krazan at Killer Food Plots can help you out with that. Also, over the wintertime, start thinking about property management, maybe some clearing, some hinge cutting or whatever. Killer Food Plots can be a source for that as well. Check them out online at killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. While you are online, check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com, and then jump over to teachinfishin.com. Teachinfishin.com, probably more information on that one website than you can ever digest when it comes to fishing, because Lance Valentine is the guy behind it, and Lance is the man when it comes to trolling for walleye. Lance, I asked you the question before the break, but to follow up on it, we're out there chasing 18-inch walleye on Saginaw Bay all summer. How is it different here on Lake Erie? What are you doing differently from that summer pattern?
Yeah, so it's definitely different, right? So the biggest thing people have to understand is as the water gets colder, walleyes have a huge tendency to separate by size. So if you're really looking for good fish and you may make a trolling pass and you may catch 10 fish in a pass and they're all 3.5, 4 pounds, you're not going to catch an 8 or 9 pounder there. It's just not going to happen because the bait that's in the lake now is such varying different sizes, and big fish this time of year want big baits. They're looking for 4, 5, 6, 7-inch shad. That's not an abnormal thing for a 27, 28, 29, 30-inch walleye to eat 6, 8, 10 of those a day, digest them, and still hit a crankbait while they're eating those big baits. So if you catch small fish and you want big fish, get away. You got to go look for a pot of big fish. Bigger baits, right? I think big lures, reef runners, bandits, those are kind of the smallest lures that we fish. I would start there and move up. I fish a lot of crankbaits that people would probably consider small musky baits. Crankbaits that are 7.5, 8, 9 inches long. I don't, Reef Runner used to make that big 900. I fish a lot of those. Super Shad Raps, if anybody is a musky fisherman, I'm sure they've got Super Shad Raps in their box. Those types of baits are not uncommon to fish in the fall because that's what the fish are looking for. So finding the right pot of fish, not just catching fish, but moving until you find the right size of fish, upping the size of your bait, and understanding, too, one of the things that we have found out over the years is the colder the water is, the further above fish you can put your lure. As the water gets warmer, your bait needs to be within, sometimes 1, 2, 3 feet of a fish. In cold water, for whatever reason, if you see fish down at, let's say, 20 feet, don't hesitate to put a bait up at 12, 13, 14. They will come that 6, 8 feet in cold water to get a bait. So we don't have to be right at the fish. We definitely have to be above them, but we can be higher above them in colder water than we can in the summertime. And those three things together kind of help you get an idea of how you can target fall fish as opposed to what you do in the summertime.
Okay, to follow up on some of those thoughts, when you talk about 3.5, 4 pound fish being small fish, that says a lot about a fishery, because for most people, that's the biggest fish you're going to catch maybe ever, right, on some bodies of water.
Yeah, but you're not going to Lake Erie in the fall for 4 pound fish.
Well, that's crazy. Also, help me understand why that a walleye will chase a bait farther in cold water than he will in warm water.
Yeah, I don't know the why from a fish's point. My personal guess is there's so much bait in the summertime, and fish know if I don't eat right now, I can eat whenever I want to. So they're really not on search and destroy, go look for their bait mission. They're just going to sit, and something's going to come by, and here it comes. I'm just going to grab a few, and I'm just going to kind of chill out for a minute because there is so much bait. As fall goes on, and Mother Nature tells these fish to eat, and the bait gets less and less and less every day, I think their attack nature, their search and destroy, their go look for bait instincts kick in a lot more than they do in the summertime when there's bait everywhere. And here's why I know this happens. If you catch a bait in the summertime, you watch your offshore planer board just kind of slides backwards, right? No big deal about it. You catch a fish, even a 3, 4, 5 pound fish, you catch that fish springtime before 64 degrees, fall time after 60 degrees, Your boards don't go back. They go down. That fish comes up. He grabs that bait. He goes down to where he was sitting, and then your board starts to slide back because of the weight. It doesn't just slide straight back. That tells me that those fish are coming up, going back down to where they were, and then the weight of the fish actually pulls the board back, not the fish grabbing and kind of just staying at the same depth. So we see some things that verify that happens, but I think it's that instinct, that hunt, that go look for your bait, you got to eat, becomes much stronger as the water gets colder.
What about trolling speeds in that colder water?
Okay, so let's kind of take that. Let's correlate it to trolling speeds, right? Everybody thinks you got to go slow in the fall. I don't believe that. And look, I've told you this 1,000 times. If you're a shad, if you're a 4 or 5, 6 inch shad, and there's a 30-inch walleye on your butt, you're not going to go, oh, I'm kind of cold, I can't swim very fast. You are going to put the jets on and swim as fast as you can to get away from certain depth. I don't understand why people don't understand that speed is a trigger, and natural bait, when it's being attacked, moves fast to get out of the way. I don't know why we can't turn that into quick trolling speeds. We catch a lot of fish, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32-inch fish. Every fall in water that's 40 degrees, we catch a lot of fish at 2.8, 2.9, 3, 3.1. And sometimes that trigger is a trigger that catches you more and or bigger fish than the guy who's going slow. So understand that these walleyes are hunting. They expect their bait to run or swim away from them. When they attack it, sometimes speed can be the trigger that gets you more fish.
And how long into the fall will this fishery hold up?
Until you can't get your boat to travel through the ice.
Is there an ice fishery? A stupid question. Is there an ice fishery on Lake Erie?
Absolutely. There's a world-class ice fishery just west of where and that's what these fish are doing. These fish are out east in the summertime in the colder water eating smelt. They're coming back to where they're going to winter around Port Clinton, around those reefs. That's where they're going to winter, and then they're going to spawn on the reefs, go up to the Sandusky River, go up to the Detroit River to spawn. But they're going to winter around that Port Clinton and the islands area. That is a world-class fishery for giant walleye through the ice. So that's what's happening. These fish we're intercepting these fish in Huron as they're coming from the east, coming back to the west where they'll be in late November, early December. We're kind of intercepting them on their journey from out east in the summertime back to where they're going to be in the far western basin over wintertime.
I hear a lot about the night fishery on Lake Erie. Do you have much experience with that, Lance?
Yeah, I don't do it. I'm not built for night fishing. I don't like to be out in the dark. You really got to have your boat really everything has to be perfect. But if you like to night fish, this is the best place. And this fishery, our mutual friend Mark Sack and I, this fishery in Huron started as a night fishery only.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, guys would go out at night, and then back in the mid '90s, guys started just staying out later, and all of a sudden they're catching fish at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, then it just turned into a daytime fishery with some people night fishing. This fishery was kind of discovered and kind of put on the map as a night fishery, and then people realized those fish just stay around in a little bit deeper water during the day. You can catch them just as easy during the day as you can at night. So if you like to night fish, it absolutely is a great opportunity. If you don't have a boat and you want to pier fish, there's great piers in Vermilion, in Huron, Sandusky. There's places you can shore fish and get at these fish if you don't have a boat. But it's both a daytime and a nighttime fishery. Both have their own little idiosyncrasies, but definitely a night fishery down there for sure.
I'm glad you brought that up about shore fishing, because this is one place where a shore angler can cast and get access to true trophy fish. That doesn't happen very often, Lance.
No, it doesn't. And there's places all along the southern shore, basically from west of Sandusky all the way to Lorraine, that people can, especially in the Cleveland area and just east of or just west of Cleveland, that you can find places to shore fish, and you have a legitimate chance every night at catching a double-digit fish from the shore. Man, they're really cool to catch from a boat. Could you imagine a 12, 13-pound walleye on a crankbait offshore with a rod in your hand? I mean, that would be something absolutely amazing. So there definitely is a night fishery there that people that don't have a boat can take advantage of for sure. And there's guys that wait too. right? The area that we fish around Huron, you can go between Huron and Vermilion. There's a lot of rocky shoreline. You can get out 100, 150, 200 yards and be casting out into hard bottom areas that are 12, 15, 18, 20 feet deep as those walleyes are coming in at night to feed. You can get out there and pair waders, and you can actually get baits out to those fish too. So there's a lot of non-boat fishing opportunities in this area, both day and night, but obviously specifically more during the nighttime.
Yeah, think about that. You're out there standing in the water, in their element, in their environment, casting to fish after dark. That sounds like a riot to me.
Sounds kind of spooky to me.
Yeah, it's spooky too, yeah. Hey, listen, Lance, before I let you go, I know you're a guy who's always looking forward. You're always looking to evolve. You're always looking to change. You're always looking to improve. Any big things coming on the horizon for you that we as people who follow you, anything in the works right now?
Yeah, you're going to see some really cool stuff when we kind of jump into January. The way we're going to structure our content is going to be a little bit different. We're going to focus on one topic every month, have multiple pieces of content that you can watch as the public. We'll have a same piece for our Teachin Fish and Anglers Club. That is a little more detail on that topic. We're going to be much more topic-driven every month, and we're going to make a lot of our stuff that has been protected for just our Anglers Club members. We're going to make it available on a month-to-month basis to the general public. Our YouTube page, have the folks run over to our YouTube page. There's a lot of stuff on fall. I'll give you this tip. Run over to our YouTube page. It's Teachin Fishing. Check out the playlist called the 8 Steps Application. There's a few videos there on fall that are really going to help you understand what's going on in the fall and catch more fish. But yeah, in January, you're going to see a really cool change in how we present content at Teachin Fishing.
8 Steps Application. See, I didn't even know for sure. I thought, well, I could ask Lance this question. He'd say, no, there's nothing coming up. But I knew in the back of my mind, even though I didn't know for sure, I knew you had something in the works because you always do. Congrats, Lance. Keep it up.
All right, buddy. Thank you for everything, Mike. I appreciate your support.
I appreciate your expertise and your friendship. Lance Valentine of Teachin Fishing, teachinfishing.com, teachinfishing.com. As he said, he also has a pretty cool YouTube channel as well. Check that out. He says for 8 Steps Application. 8 steps. I have a fishing addiction, Lance. I need 8 steps to cure me of it, and his 8 steps are going to make me even worse. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, a few more things I want to chat about, and of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Again, my name is Mike Avery. This is the Outdoor Magazine Show. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on 97.7 WMLQ. You can hear us just down the coastline, Muskegon, WKBZ, 1090 AM. Let's keep going down the coastline to St. Joe, WSJM, 94.9 FM. And now let's jump over to the east side. You can hear us in Saginaw, News Radio 790 WSGW and 100.5 FM as well. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now. I'm in here with Charlie Rood, who just popped in here like about 40 minutes ago. And Charlie, the colder weather does, the crowd's not what they usually are. You can see this. You look out there. There are still people here. They're Charlie. Not as many as when it was warmer, though. Hey, this segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Don't forget about fall being an excellent time to address your landscape projects. A lot of people think, well, it's a springtime deal, right? And it can be. However, if you want to get a jump on springtime and beat the crowd, now is the time. If you got some part of your property that's it's really overgrown, it needs to be trimmed up, you want to improve it, this is a great time to plant flowering shrubs. It's a great time to plant trees. It's a great time soon to be pruning. There's just so much that can be done this time of year. Don't wait until springtime. Get in touch with the folks at Reader right now and get these projects lined up and maybe even get them started here this fall. The website, readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. Speaking of weather, that change in the weather we had was really something, wasn't it? Wasn't it nice? Didn't it just, we've had our first frost at our house now, at the Avery house. Avery Acres, as I'd like to call it. hundreds and hundreds of rolling acres of Avery acres. No, that ain't the case. It was 38 degrees. We didn't have frost on the ground, but we did have frost on the roof. What's the first thing I thought of when I saw frost? Oh, how many weeks ago was it that the first cicada buzzed? And why do I care? That's the real question. Why do I care? And I don't know. This year, 9 weeks from the time the first cicada buzzed until we had a frost. Again, what does that mean? I don't know. It's just something I've kept track of over the years because of the old saying. When I was a kid growing up, and I think the first time I heard it was, it'll be 6 weeks from the time the first cicada buzzes till the first frost. Well, that was proven to certainly not be the case. And then it was like, okay, is it 8 weeks? Is it 10 weeks? And, over the years, I've kept track of this, and it's usually 8 to 10 weeks from the time you hear the first cicada buzz until the first frost. So I think maybe the only correlation there is if the cicadas buzz earlier, will you get an earlier frost or vice versa? Maybe, possibly. But I do like keeping track of these old sayings because I think there's a certain amount of truth in these old sayings. They wouldn't continue to get passed down from generation to generation if there wasn't some kind of truth. And I'm thinking of, the real basic ones. When the wind is from the east, the fishing is the least. When the wind is from the west, the fishing is the best. And, there is some truth in that. My grandpa would not go fishing if there was an east wind, period. He wouldn't go out. Now, a lot of people have caught an awful lot of fish in an east wind over the years. So that's not the gospel. But I do find these sayings interesting. And I look at how we used to enjoy the outdoors in a much more simple, basic manner. Because we didn't have the technology, we had to rely more on our own observations, our own experiences. Does our ability now to use technology diminish that outdoor experience? Does it diminish the joy that we get, the passion that we have for the outdoors? I'd like to think no. We do it differently. We look at it differently, like, trail cameras. We've got trail cameras on some property that we lease as a family. And during the warm spell, as you would expect, the deer just weren't moving. The minute that cold front came in, the cameras came alive. Now, in the old days, you would know that and suspect that anecdotally, but the only way to really prove it would be to be out there and to watch it, to experience it. These days, you can keep track of things on your phone, on your laptop. In fact, my son James just texted me right now. I think we got a deer moving right now. Isn't that crazy? Does it make us lazy? Possibly. Does it make us more effective? Probably. Is it bad? I don't think so. I think anything we can do to stay in touch with this natural world, this way of life that we love so much, hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping, I'm all for it. I don't use it as a crutch, would be my advice. But, things change, things evolve. And as long as we continue to have this passion for the outdoors, for the hunting and fishing, shooting and trapping, just getting out there, feeling that cold air on the back of your neck, feeling that rain in your face, maybe getting a little bit uncomfortable, maybe being too hot, maybe being too cold, whatever it is, to take us out of our day-to-day world. Get outdoors where we don't have the ultimate control of things. Right now, I'm sitting here in the studio. Charlie pushes a button, something happens. I call up something on my phone, something happens. That's the world we live in today, this digital world. We do something, we get an immediate response, immediate gratification. Man, when you get out in the water, in the woods, you don't have control anymore. And that's what I like, I think. The fact that we know we don't have control, we are not the ultimate authority. And to me, that's appealing, that's cool. And I got to be honest, it's pretty addicting. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us this week here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. I do certainly appreciate it. Appreciate the chance to work with so many fine people over so many years. Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar is one of those people. First started working with Dave, I don't know how many years ago it was, on the old TV show. At the time, he had the old Dixie Inn. Later became Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse. We continued to work together throughout almost the entire history of the TV show. When I decided to get out of TV and concentrate on radio, I called Dave and let him know that, and he said, "Well, what do I have a role in this anymore?" And I said, "Of course you do." I said, "If you want to continue to be on the radio show with me, I think that would be an interesting segment there as well, and I'd love to have you on." And here we are so many years later, and once again, it's the end of the show, and we're wrapping up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. David, welcome back. How are you today?
Pretty good, old timer.
Old timer. But I'll never be as old as you.
That's true. I think I'm 9 years older than you are.
Man, you are old.
I am. Dirt's the only thing other than that that's older.
Yeah, well, we're both still here.
That's all that matters.
What do you got for us this week, my friend?
I've got venison loin medallions. Seeing how deer season's in full swing right now, I'm sure people have a lot of venison ready to cook. So this is a barbecue dish, and it's with raspberry schnapps and raspberry vinaigrette. So you're going to need about 3 to 4 ounce medallions. You want to trim all silver and fat off, and then you're going to need about 2 per person, okay? And you need a package of fresh or frozen raspberries, raspberry vinaigrette, which you can buy in the grocery store, and probably a little sugar to taste. And you might need a tablespoon or 2 of cornstarch to thicken this up, depending on how much vinaigrette you use and how much liquid the raspberries cast off. And you need a couple ounces of raspberry schnapps. So what you're going to do is you're going to take and heat up all of the not the vegetables, but all of the liquid, and then you're going to need 1 jar of beef gravy. So you're going to need an onion, diced up nice and fine, a couple cloves of garlic, a jar of beef gravy, 2 ounces of raspberry schnapps, and 1 to 2 ounces of the raspberry vinaigrette. Now, I would suggest to marinate these loins even if it's only for a few hours or overnight, in the raspberry vinaigrette, because that's going to and it's going to partially cook them, because you're going to want to cook these to rare to medium rare, because anything acidic like a vinaigrette would start to do the cooking process. So you need the onion, the beef gravy, the schnapps, and the raspberry vinaigrette, and the raspberries. Heat it up in a pan, and you're going to strain this on the plates with a hair-fine sieve. And so what you're going to do is rub a little bit of olive oil on these medallions, and a real nice hot barbecue. You want to cook them real fast, only the rare to medium rare. And while that's going on, you're going to strain the sauce onto the plates, and you're going to lay the medallions right on top of the sauce. And they have a tremendous raspberry flavor because you're marinating them, and plus you got raspberries, raspberry schnapps, and my goodness, I've done this for the restaurant for years when we used to have the barbecue.
It sounds wonderful. I just feel like this one, the more rare you can keep this, the better you would be.
Exactly, because what's going to happen, the more you cook this, especially on a real hot barbecue, it's going to dry it out. So you want a real hot barbecue, sear it on both sides, and then take it off right away. You're not going to do more than a minute or 2 on each side, depending on how thick these medallions are. A 3 to 4 ounce medallion from a decent-sized deer, not going to be very thick. So you don't want to overcook these under any circumstances.
You know how when you take, say, fish off the grill, it continues to cook. Will venison continue to cook once it's away from the heat as well?
Absolutely. That's why you want to go rare. By the time you go to eat it and you put it on hot sauce, it's going to be medium rare. So I really like it really rare. That's why I want a real hot barbecue to sear it real fast on both sides and then get it off of that fire right away.
All right, my friend. Great advice as usual. Can we talk to you next week again?
Yes, we can.
All right, I'll look forward to it.
Here.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show. As are you. As I'm looking at my notes here, too, one thing to add here, and this is a ways down the road, but this is a pleasant surprise. December 6th, all right, a ways down the road, we are going to do another Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack Restaurant, the Forward Corporation Lumberjack Restaurant in West Branch. We haven't been able to do one of these for a while, and a lot of people have been saying, when can we get together and do it? When can we get together and do it? Well, we're going to do it Wednesday, December 6th. Way too early to start making reservations, but I do want you to get this on your calendar, something to think about coming up here in several weeks. Wednesday, December 6th, a Wednesday night live at the Lumberjack. In the meantime, I do my Wednesday night live shows every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock on my social media outlets. I also do a Behind the Mic live stream Wednesday mornings at 8:45 as well. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. The email address is mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you. Let me know what's on your mind. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.